What are the key problems that you often uh, handle, manage in the data? So beyond this, there could be some exceptional cases. And again, when you deal with the real-time data, uh, the experience that you encounter with the data is always unique. Most probably, you'll be dealing with this either one of this problem. Otherwise, very rare scenario that you'll be experiencing a unique problem. Okay. So here, the first thing is when you download the data from different sources, they have their own way of handling the variable name. We call taxonomy. So they have their own style of handling the variable name, and they just simply keep the variable name in that particular format, and it is available for downloading purpose. So now that variable you are downloading for your consumption, now you are using the data for your research work, right? So now the variable name, the way in which they have given you, it is very difficult for you to memorize it and use it for your convenience. That is what variable name may not be appropriate. So the data, what you have in this data, you first, what you have to do, you have to change the variable name, right? So for example, the variable name is mentioned as HP204. I'm just writing randomly, but that is nothing but the state. So it is always easy for you to remember and say, call it as a state rather than HP204, right? So this is the first cleaning process that you'll be doing it. Then you already have all the existing variable, but the existing variable may not be sufficient for your analysis purpose. For example, instead of you may need a total asset, but instead of total asset, they have the variable called durable goods, car, gold, long-term savings, so on and so forth. So now what you're doing, you are not sufficient with the existing variable. That means you are creating a new variable with available existing variable. So again, you are generating a new variable. So that is also part of a data cleaning. So the existing variable may not be sufficient, and you're creating a new variable based on the available data set. The other problem you often face is the problem of a blank or a dot. So even if you download the data from World Development Indicators for all the country, not for all the countries, all the informations are available. Some countries, some data are available, some data may not be available. The So therefore the data might be missed. It is mentioned as a dot or nothing is mentioned at all. So the double quote is nothing but that there is no information given in the particular plan. And you have to be very sensitive in this data. Um, it is because it is blank or because it is dot doesn't mean it is zero. So if it is a blank or if it is dot, don't try to put zero by yourself and run any analysis, because zero has its own meaning in this data. It will take it little differently. So when it is a blank or a dot, you have to deal that missing values differently. That Dr. Neha Kumar will be explaining you in detail. So problem of blank or dot is another major concern in the data. When you are cleaning the data, you have to take into consider those things as well, so that the data cleaning process will be very effective. The other problem that you will be dealing is a lack of clarity in the categorical variable. For example, education's category is by default, if you are downloading or even if you collect the data from the field, you create a by default a category like illiterate to graduate and above. But you come to know that not all are illiterate. Only 2 to 3 people only illiterate, and majority of them are maybe higher education. Very few are graduate and above. So now there is no illiterate at all, and or 1 or 2 people are illiterate, and very few people are graduate and above. So while running an analysis or whatever, it is doesn't make any sense for you to keep those observations. So you may have to recategorize it. So for your own convenience. So instead of having 0 to 6 category, you try to trim down to 0 to 4, 1 to 4 category. So that is decently manageable and also meaningful analysis you can get based on that. So the lack of clarity in the categorical variable also major concern while cleaning the data you should focus on. Even for example, the social group, for example, you have SC, ST, OBC, general, and so on and so forth. But you notice that very hardly few samples showing SC and very few samples showing general. So majority of them are ST and OBC. Then you can create a 3 category: ST, OBC, and others. So others include general and SC, so that the number also make more meaningful rather than showing all the four category, and that again lead to certain skewed distribution in your data properties. The other issue that you often deal is issue with the outlier. For example, while feeding the data, instead of writing 8,000, you might have mistakenly typed two rows digit in a single row itself. For example, 8,000, 8,700, you write 8000, 8700. You did not notice it. But that itself create a big problem when you are doing the analysis, because the mean always leads to the higher value, right? So you have to be very sensitive with the outlier, and you have to see, there is also a mechanism through which you also have to address it. So that is also another process of data cleaning. You have to make sure there is no major outliers in the data. Then again, data in a proper shape. When you download the data, not necessarily the data are always available as per your requirement. For example, all the variables should be in a column to handle the data, but instead of in column, it is given in a row. That means you need a data transformation that you have to do it. Or the data, the same variable having both numerical and non-numerical. For example, you're asking an income. So people are saying I have 10,000, 12,000, 30,000. Some people say not applicable. They are not even saying anything. Maybe he's a student, so you write NA. So when you're feeding the data, you might be feeding NA as well. So it is a mix of both numerical and non-numerical. In this data, it will read as a string only. Any non-numerical character in the numerical in the particular variable, it will consider always as a string. So you always have to try to understand the data and try to figure out what is the problem in that and try to resolve it. So data not in a proper shape is a major concern that you always encounter that you have to resolve it. The another is the untrimmed data feeding. So untrimmed data feeding means you can see here, for example, for the income, instead of typing 4208, you're supposed to type 4208 only. Instead of that, you are giving 4208 space, space, space. So this unnecessary space also, data will read as a string rather than read as a number. So you also have to make sure the data, whatever you feed it, is correct. So those also you need to be cleaned so that the data is ready for analysis. The other is the problem with data distribution. Some data might be non-normal distribution. Some data may be very skewed towards right. If some issues are there, that there are different ways in which you address that also need to be addressed so that data is ready for analysis. The other one is dealing with multiple IDs. Like when you normally do with the household survey data, the household survey data is the individual ID, again, household ID, district ID, state ID. Depends upon your interest of your research. For example, you wanted to do district level study, then how you deal with the individual and household IDs in the same data set. So there are different transformation process that you have to use to convert individual ID or household ID into district level data that you can use for analysis. So when you're dealing with the multiple ID, it depends upon nature of your study. You have to address those IDs so that you can able to conduct your analysis. So these are the key major problems encounter this problem in the cross-sectional data.